I don't know how this happened. I never read Lord of the Rings. Like, I was always a reader. I never really read much fantasy. And it always was kind of just one of those books that, like, I was always going to get around to it, and then I never did. So I'm getting around to it. And to be perfectly honest, it's not that I've never read Lord of the Rings. I read Fellowship of the Ring when I was like 20 in college, so it's been like 10 years now. I did not really love it. I took a fantasy literature course in college, which I don't want to call it a mistake because it was a wonderful course. I loved the professor, but it was definitely a course that was not intended for people like me who were fulfilling a literature requirement for their creative writing major. It was intended for hardcore fantasy fans. I had not read any of the books on the curriculum, and I'm pretty sure the vast majority of the other students had read all of them. So it was an interesting experience. Everyone else was having a great time rereading Lord of the Rings, and I was like, who is Frodo? Who is Boromir? Like, who are these people, and what are we doing here? So yeah, I don't remember anything about that book. I did not retain much from any of the books I read in the years I was in college. Don't know why, but they were all fully blanks in my head. So this month I'm going to read all of the books and potentially The Hobbit, but that depends on how I feel. If I enjoy these and am down for more, I will include The Hobbit in this vlog because I do have a copy, but I'm just committing to the first 3. This is largely because my boyfriend is tired of waiting to watch the movies because I keep telling him, oh no, don't watch the movies, like wait for me to read the books and I'll watch them with you. And he's like, I want to watch the movies now. So I need to read the books so that we can watch the movies. And he wants to watch the extended versions of the movies, which are like 4+ hours each. Like, please save me. This is like 12 hours of movie. Okay, so I'm gonna be reading these. Again, don't really remember Fellowship all that well. Not that I don't remember hating it. I remember it being kind of like a little bit boring, mostly fine. I don't know. I don't know what I'm expecting from it at this point. Like, I don't think I'm going to love these, which is why I've continuously put them off, but I don't think I'm gonna hate them either. It's just like, look at this. This is a thick, if you look at this as like one book, which is how I like reading series, this is a lot to read. I'm not really looking forward to this. And I know these are the ugly mass market paperback movie edition covers. I don't care. I want to have read Lord of the Rings. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm going to experience them, and I'm going to share my thoughts with the masses of 12 people who watch this video, but I'm gonna do it. I'm finally sitting down to do it. And this will also be a spoilery vlog. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on everything that happens that I care about, if anything. So if you don't want spoilers, or you don't want spoilers after a specific point, stop watching, I guess, after that point. But I kind of figure, for the most part, people who care already know, and people who don't care just don't care. But I'm gonna be reading these. Wish me luck. Progress has been made on Fellowship. I am a little bit more than 100 pages in. I've been waiting to update because like nothing has been happening. Like nothing has been happening, which I knew. Like, I've read this before, so I don't remember it, but I do remember it being very boring and nothing happening for a very long time. And so far, nothing has happened. It's just about these bunch of hobbits just wandering around, and I'm waiting for things to happen. I am just about to hit the Tom Bombadil chapter, which I'm not looking forward to because that is like one of the 3 things I remember from my first read of this. But I'm hoping after that things will pick up, because at this point it's like, no wonder I didn't remember this book. It's just a bunch of hobbits wandering around, not knowing anything that's happening. Like, it's like, no wonder. So, yeah, I just wanted to update to say I am reading, and I don't have much to say other than that it's boring, and I really would like for something to happen soon. It's honestly only the next day, and I'm about halfway through. I've done some good reading in the last night and this morning. They're still doing a lot of walking. There was a point where I got past Tom Bombadil and all that stuff, which I knew I wasn't gonna like, and like at this point of the book I don't remember anything, so like it's basically all new. Like I do not remember meeting Aragorn, but I have met Aragorn. They went to an inn and I was like, oh, things are finally gonna happen, like the story's finally going to begin. And they met Aragorn and now they're walking again. That's basically all that's happened so far in this book. There are vague bad things out there and they do a lot of walking. I don't know, I'm halfway. I suppose at this point I'm just kind of going to accept that the rest of this book is them doing a lot of walking, and maybe the next book will get better. But it's just so dry. Like, I don't like the dialogue. There's like no character development or anything. And just the writing style in it is very dry, and he's focusing on like the things I don't care about in the story. Like, I get that this is probably interesting if you really like in-depth world building, and it's like I like world building as a secondary aspect of the story, and this is kind of like the primary aspect of the story. But it is really interesting to read this and see the influence of like that this book has had on the fantasy genre and like books I love, because I really love the books of Pellinor, and it's just like interesting to read this and see how much she got from Lord of the Rings. Like it's just an interesting thing to think about. So I'm enjoying it for the context, I think, if not so much for the book itself. Reading this, I guess it's so boring, and like I'm not disappointed that it's boring because like I was prepared, you know, like I was prepared. Like I knew it was gonna be boring, so I'm not disappointed, but it's still just like so boring and hard to get through, and just like I'm not having a good time. The worst part is that I keep hoping it gets better. Like every time I'm just like, oh, like I'm almost to the point where something will happen and I'm like ready for it, and then like nothing continues to happen. Like nothing at all. They're just on a hike. Like that's what they've been doing since the birthday party. It's just hiking. And it's not even like a magical hike because nothing magical is happening. They're just hiking. The hobbits are all just really stupid, and then Aragorn is just complaining that the hobbits are really stupid, and I'm not sure which of those things is more annoying, but they're both really annoying. And like Frodo got stabbed, and somehow that wasn't even exciting, and it's a lot. It definitely put a damper on my reading this month because I was having some really good reads. Like I finished 3 books this month that I really loved, and now I'm just stuck slogging through this 1200 some 13 pages. I don't know. It's a lot of pages. Yeah, I wanted to finish this weekend, and then I just like didn't read yesterday. I was working on other things, but I do feel like I'm gonna have to take breaks in these books because I was gonna try to like binge them all the way through and maybe have like one other like easy thing to read in between, but like I'm gonna have to take more breaks, and this is probably gonna take me through like mid-June, end of June maybe, and I don't want that. Like I want to binge through these. They're just not bingeable because they're so boring and they're just hiking. Like this book is just a hike. That's all they're doing. They're just walking, and like it's not an exciting walk. They're just walking. So I'm hoping the next 2 books are improved upon the boringness, because it's not like I hate them, or I mean I don't hate this. It's just boring and they're walking, and I don't know. So yeah, I'm still trying to get through. I don't know how much more I'll update on this one, just because like at this point I don't think anything is going to change. They're just gonna keep walking, and I do think they like meet Legolas and Boromir and like the group. I think I think they meet them all by the end of this book, just because I do vaguely remember them. But just I've given up hope on this book ever becoming interesting. I got through like 70 pages yesterday, which made it a really good reading day. And I do not know why, But for some reason, I allowed myself to think that things were going to happen once I got to book two. Not book two, like the Two Towers or whatever it's called, but book two, like Fellowship is split into book one and book two. So a little more than halfway, you get into book two, and I was like, oh my gosh, things might actually happen. And I don't know why I allowed myself to do that, because now they're just sitting around the council table talking to each other and being like, hey, things are happening. Let's explain the entire story to this point. And it's not that it's hard to follow, it's just that I do not care. There are like 8 paragraphs of dialogue in a row. Like, why? Like, with no dialogue tags. So I even forget who's talking, and it's like I could go check, but to be honest, I really don't care. I'm just trying to get through this until something happens, either character development or story development, or like I'm not down for like 30 pages of them sitting around the table talking about all the important stuff. It's not fun. So I've got like 150 pages left of this book, and I'm just trying to burn through it. So, genuine question. Why are Merry and Pippin allowed to go with them? It doesn't make sense. Like, Frodo, sure, he's the chosen one. Like, he has to be there. And, like, you can even justify Sam as, like, Frodo's, personal servant. But, like, Merry and Pippin contribute nothing. It makes no sense. Like, there's literally no reason that they should be allowed to go. And then Merry or Pippin or whoever was like, well, if you don't let us go, like, we'll sneak along. And it's like, no, you won't. You do not have the skills for that. Like, I get that they're going for speed, so they wouldn't necessarily want to bring, like, 2 more warriors, but they could just bring 2 random people who are good at tracking, or, like, wilderness living, or, like, anything. Merry and Pippin are just dead weight, and it makes no sense. Like, I recognize that they will probably do something that is very important later in these books, but, like, that doesn't justify them doing it now. Gandalf was just like, oh, friendship is important. Like, no, it's not. Not in this situation. Survival is important. Like, oh, it's, it doesn't make sense. So I have finished Fellowship of the Ring. Finally. So happy, so relieved. I'm finally over it. The ending did get better. Like, I don't want to talk like this was the worst thing I've ever read. I've read far worse things. I'm giving it 2 stars, but like, mostly because it was very boring and I'm expecting more later on. Like, I do think the next 2 books will be better. I do not have Fellowship with me or I'd be holding it up. My boyfriend is currently reading it because he has decided that next weekend, today's Sunday, a week from tomorrow is Memorial Day. So we have a 3-day weekend next week, and we would like to try to watch the Lord of the Rings movies next weekend. So I spent about 2 weeks reading Fellowship, and now I have a week to read The Two Towers and Return of the King. He's about halfway through Fellowship, because he would like to read them with me. He's enjoying it more than I did, but I finished it. Overall thoughts, 2 stars, very boring. They did a lot of walking, they did a lot of talking, and then they replaced the walking with boats at the end, and it finally got a little more interesting. Preferred that. Gandalf died, which I wasn't expecting. I know I read this before, but when I say I remembered nothing, I mean genuinely nothing. Like, I knew Gandalf was going to die, but I kind of thought he was going to die in the second book, because that kind of seems like when you kill off that type of character. But no, they just killed him, and like, I don't know, this book does nothing with the characters for me. Like, I feel no personal connection to them, and I want to feel something when Gandalf dies, but all I feel is kind of like, okay, sure, he's gone. So, yeah. And the other thing is that the books of Pellinor, the first one, the naming, I don't want to say all of them because I do think after the first book they diverge a lot. The first book is a straight ripoff of Fellowship, just like much better done. Like, sometimes scene for scene, and I like it so much better than Fellowship. Like, I'm not gonna say it's like a better book, it's just like much more about the characters and the emotions and the relationships, and I feel like she does a much better job of building this interesting world. whereas Tolkien makes me care about nothing. But it does, like, reading it just makes me want to read the books of Pellinor instead, like, so much. But it is interesting to see what it's influenced and actually, like, see that influence, because I know, like, so much fantasy is a ripoff of Lord of the Rings, but it's like, it's interesting to be able to see it and to see, like, what some of these scenes are and how similar some things are. It's just, like, interesting for that. But I have heard that the next two books are better. Here's hoping. Because if they're like Fellowship, I don't think I can get through them in the same week. But yeah, this is only 400 pages and the third one is only 350 if you don't read like the 400-page appendix or whatever ridiculous nonsense it is. Because I was looking at it, I was like, this is about 500 pages, and I flipped back to see where the book actually ended, and it was only 350. Like, go figure, Tolkien has 150 pages of appendix, plus the Silmarillion, which is just like nothing. I'm not reading that. But I finished Fellowship. I'm moving on. I'm hoping the next two books will be 3 stars for me. Fingers crossed, maybe I get a 4-star, but I feel like that is pushing it based on my reading taste. But my boyfriend is having a good time with Fellowship. He finds it a little bit dull, but like significantly more interesting than me, whereas I'm just like suffering. And I expect to like the movies even more, because I feel like they're going to be a lot more personable and like more on the characters, and characters are very, very important to me when reading. So I'm gonna get started on this and hopefully finish it within the next couple of days, because I now have a very strict time frame. Progress has been made on the Two Towers. I'm about 100 pages in, which I got done today, and it's only 5 p.m. So it is impressive how much I read when I have a deadline. I'm hoping to get like another 100 or so tonight. Boromir died. Wasn't expecting that. Like, it makes sense for his character, but it was still like, wasn't expecting it to just like happen immediately. Like, all I knew about Boromir was that he wanted the ring at one point and like was morally conflicted, and apparently that's just all there is to know about him. He was not long for this world. So that was interesting. And as I was reading this, I realized his writing style is dry, and I'm not the biggest fan of like the overall story, but my biggest issue is the hobbits. I don't like the hobbits. I don't like the story that focuses on the hobbits. I find them very annoying. My boyfriend thinks they're funny. He's reading them and he's like, oh, the hobbits are great. And I'm just like, they're insufferable. Not a fan of the hobbits. So when we were following Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas for like the first 50 pages of this book, I was down. I was like, this is the best it's ever been. And then you go back to Merry and Pippin and I'm just like, oh. But now we're back to Aragorn and that group, so I'm very excited, and like hopefully there's more of that in this book, but I'm kind of getting the vibe that like we're just gonna get back to the hobbits again real soon. But yeah, I am liking this book a whole lot better. Like, it was actually very enjoyable for the first 50 pages, and I was like, oh, it's gotten good, and now I'm just back to like, it's fine, I guess. But I am making solid progress. I have made progress on Two Towers. A lot of progress. Trying to get this done as quickly as possible at this point so that I can watch all the movies on Saturday. To recap what has happened in the last 150 pages, Gandalf is alive again. Love that. Just, it's always fantastic when characters just randomly come back from the dead with little to no explanation. I hate that. It is one of my least favorite tropes. Like, if it's earned, I can be okay with it. Because, like, there is a level of, like, you can make it work in a story. But I feel like half the time, and in this, it's just, like, so cheap and easy, and it just takes away any meaning that anything has. Because it's like, well, if he can just randomly be alive, there are no stakes. So yes, Gandalf the White is here. And I'm trying to think. Oh, Frodo's finally in the book, which is great. I hate Frodo. I hate Frodo and I hate Gandalf because they're both just such one-note characters. And I think this is something that will look different in the movie. Like, they might not feel so one-note in the movie, but like in the book, they're both just so bland and they both just always do the same thing. So like I was really stoked that like the first more than half of this book didn't have any Frodo at all. No Frodo. Like 10 out of 10, let's cut Frodo out of this book. Like, there was character development, like Merry and Pippin and Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas. Like, I'm down for the 5 of them, but like, let's just remove Gandalf and Frodo. Which is unfortunate because I feel like they're rather important characters. But yeah, now we're following Frodo and I'm loving it less. But I am really enjoying this one a lot more. Like, this one is actually like, there's a story here and there are things happening, whereas the first one was just like, look at this world. Look at what's going to happen. We need to set up everything. All in all, I'm having a much better time. But yeah, Gandalf and Frodo can just, not a fan. I finished the 2 Towers. It's like midnight. I definitely stayed up way too late getting this finished, but now I have 3 days to read Return of the King, so it was worth it. Because Return of the King looks thick, but like most of it is the appendix, so it's like less than 350 pages in mass market paperback. Borderline illiterate when it's late. Anyway, I finished this. Oh, I hate Frodo. It's just, he's so annoying. Like, he is not the stupidest hobbit, but he is the most annoying hobbit. Like, I just, that last almost half of the book where we were just following him and his story with Sam and Gollum, and it's just like, I don't care about Frodo. Like, my favorite parts of this book were about Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli, and like, I would have been much happier if we spent more time following them, because I found them actually interesting. They had actual development, and so did Merry and Pippin, but the 3 of them, I was gonna say 10 out of 10, like 8 out of 10 maybe. I still don't love it. And the annoying thing about this whole series is that things happen off screen, like all the time, and then the characters come back and explain them. And Gandalf does this every single time. He'll be like, oh, let me like write ahead to like plan a thing or like get something set up. And then he rides ahead, this whole battle happens, and he comes back and explains the battle or like whatever he was doing. Like, it's not just battles and fights, it's like everything. And then he comes back and like, oh, let me like sit down and spend 20 pages explaining everything that happens. And it's like, I want to see this in real time. And again, it's not about like the battles and the fighting. It's just like the action, the development, the story is being told to me by the characters instead of me getting to experience it with them. And I can see how much better this could be done in the movies, because you'll actually be able to see it. Like, you will see what is unfolding. You'll see the action, and like, I can only imagine that it's going to be infinitely better in that regard. And no one told me there was a spider. Like, please warn me about the giant random spiders, because I'm not a fan, and I'm really not excited to watch that in the movie because I don't do spiders. So that was unpleasant. Sam's an idiot, so he thought Frodo was dead and just left him. Frodo wasn't dead, he was just unconscious. Thanks, Sam. I don't know. To be honest, even when Sam was like, he's dead, I was like, he's not dead. Like, Gandalf wasn't dead, no one's dead. Boromir's probably not even dead. He'll probably come back in some form in the 3rd book, just because nothing means anything in this world. But it wasn't bad. Like, I know I'm like whining a lot, but it really wasn't bad. Like, this one was much more entertaining. Like, I had a much better time. It was actually like worth reading, whereas like I did not like Fellowship 2 Towers. Pretty okay, giving it 3 stars. I've heard that the next one is potentially better, so fingers crossed it just like keeps improving from here, because this was actually an enjoyable read, if not a particularly great one for me. Progress has been made. I'm about halfway through. It doesn't look it, but that's because the last like 150 pages is all appendix. Like, this is all the appendix, and I'm only gonna skim this. Like, I already know I don't care. So I'm kind of just gonna skim it after I finish the real book. And to be honest, I might do it like after I watch the movies on Saturday. It's Thursday night, but I'm halfway through like the real portion of the book. I have thoughts. First of all, I'm very disappointed. Two Towers was actually pretty good. Like, I only gave it 3 stars, but that's because like I didn't really like a lot of the Frodo stuff. I found that kind of dull and like whatever. Not bad. Like, not as bad as Fellowship, but I was still like not really a fan, so it was like 3 stars because I really liked the Legolas Gimli stuff. And to be honest, I really liked Merry and Pippin, and I hadn't liked any of the hobbits in the first book. And I'm reading this, and I'm just like, I hate it again. Like, this is not enjoyable. It's like super dry, and just, I don't care about them just sitting there and talking about all this stuff that has happened, or that will happen, or that they want to happen. And it's just like, they're just sitting there talking, and I don't care. And not a fan. What else was I gonna say? I had thoughts, and then I sat down to film, and the cats distracted me. Oh, they keep pretending like people are dead. Like, okay, I just finished the first book of this, which is book 5, which is the halfway point. So we're doing the big battle, and like we reach the end of the battle, and oh my god, Pippin might be dead. And it's just like, I don't actually believe Pippin is dead. And I wish that I did. It's just that like they've faked us out on death so many times that I just don't care anymore. Like, I don't have it in me. I don't believe that Pippin's dead. They're faking Frodo's death right now. I don't believe Frodo's dead. Like, if they faked Gandalf's death, they faked Mary's death, they faked, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Owen's death. They faked everyone's death. Faramir's death. Like, just kill people. Like, I really wish this book had killed more people than it has, because like, of the main cast, and I'm talking not this book, the whole series, of the main cast, the only person that has died is Boromir. And to be perfectly honest, Boromir's only purpose in this book was to be morally conflicted and then die. And that's all he contributed. And it's like, I don't really care about Boromir. Boromir didn't exist for you to care about him. He existed to be morally conflicted and die. It's disappointing. I wish they kill someone important. And like, I think they will by the time that it's over. I hope they will at least. But it's like, they've faked it so many times. I don't care, and I don't believe it when they fake it anymore, which irritates me. I also don't really like the structure of either this or Two Towers, because they both have a very like kind of back and forth kind of structure, because the team, I'm gonna call them the team because I forget what they call them, the linguistics, I don't care about. I know that's Tolkien's thing. I do not care about all the made up words. And it's like, to a degree, you need that in fantasy. Like, I have to deal with it. But like, it's just so many and so much. And like, the names for everything, and different cultures, and different people, and different magics, and different places, and different things within the culture. And it's just like, I've tuned it out. So there are things that I'm definitely missing because I just don't care anymore. But getting back to what I was saying about the structure, the whole team is split up. And I don't necessarily mind that they're split up, but it's more that like, you meet up with like, okay, let's take Tower for example, the Two Towers. You start out with Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli, and you follow them for like a chapter from like A to B. And then you go hang out with Merry and Pippin, and you go back to A and follow Merry and Pippin from A to B. And then you repeat that. So you're getting a lot of like repeated timelines, and like they're separate, so you're not getting repeated like scenes. But it's still like, and then you get to the end of the book, and at the end of the book, you stop following like the A team of Aragorn and Legolas and Merry and Pippin and Gandalf and whoever. And then you follow the B team of Frodo and Sam, and you go back to all the way, like you'd gotten up to G, and then you go all the way back to A, where the last book ended, and follow them again. And it's just, I find it frustrating. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it annoys. I didn't really like it in the Two Towers, but I was like willing to put up with it. But in here, it is just kind of irritating me. I'm gonna read a little bit more tonight, and then I really have to finish this tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, and my boyfriend and I are doing our Lord of the Rings movie marathon on Saturday. So I will vlog a little bit of that, but like he isn't like being on camera or anything, so like he won't be in it. But I'll vlog a little bit of that, and then my thoughts on the movies, because I really do think I'll like the movies more, just on the basis that there's so much talking about doing things in this book, and I really wish we could just like do them and see them happen. And I think in the movies I will see them happen. And I like the characters in this. Like, I genuinely like the characters when they're given personalities and development and moments to shine. And you really do see that sometimes, like, especially with Merry and Pippin, like, and Legolas and Gimli. Like, the four of them, when they have scenes of, like, actual character development and personality is really, really good. And those are my favorite parts of these books. But, like, they're so few and far between, and like none of the other characters have that spleenwort, and it's just like it really needs a lot more character for me. So this was a very long update. That might be like the main final update on the books of like, these are all my thoughts, and then I'll get to the end of this and just be like, yeah, that was it. But I'm gonna read a little bit more tonight, and then read tomorrow, and hopefully it has a good ending. Spleen worked. I finished, and at this point the overwhelming emotion is just relief. Like, I'm done. I don't have to read this anymore. I did not read the appendices. I skimmed them a bit, but to be honest, I really didn't care. Spleen is having a grand time behind me. Yeah, that's what she does all day. She has like 3 of those. I don't know what the last 100 pages of this were. It was like, he threw the ring into the crack of doom, and then it was just like 100 pages of like random weddings of characters who'd never met before or never spoken before, and like everyone on the long trek home, and like, I don't know, it was just like, this is way too much. Like, I don't care that much about the characters. Like, to do something like that, I really gotta be invested in the characters, and I really, really, like, it wasn't terrible. Like, I'm glad everyone ended up happy, but it was very much just, like, couldn't this have been, like, 30 or 40 pages instead of 100? And then nobody died, which I found kind of annoying, just because, like, you have this fantasy book, this set around this war, where all of the main characters are fighting, like, multiple times throughout the series, and no one dies except Boromir. I mean, like, of the main cast, because my boyfriend keeps sitting there trying to argue that like, oh, this king died, and like Wormtongue died, and Saruman died. Like, yeah, the bad people died, some minor characters died, but like, of the main cast, the only one who died was Boromir, and Boromir only existed to die. Like, morally conflicted, die. That was his whole character, which is annoying, but fine. But it's like, I expected someone to die in the end. I expected some sort of like heartbreak or emotion. Like, this is a war. Like, I want it to feel like a war. And when nobody dies, it doesn't really feel like it was all that serious. Like, it just kind of cheapens it a little bit to me. And it's not like the lack of death. Like, I just want tragedy. It's just like, when the whole thing is set around a war, either in like fantasy or realistic fiction or like whatever, I kind of feel like it has to die, or someone has to die, or it just doesn't feel like a war. And then it did the annoying superhero thing at the end where like, the main character is good. The main character is too good to just kill people, but also the bad guys need to die. So it's like this annoying like roundabout thing to kill the bad guys without like bloodying the hands of the main hero, and I would just rather the main hero kill them. Like, it just happens too much for me, and it's annoying. And okay, I get that this book is older than like everything else, but I still just find it annoying because it's like, just kill them. Like, I hate the like accidental death or killed by outside forces or like whatever. Because you can't leave Saruman alive. You just you can't leave him alive, but also like Frodo can't kill him or like allow him to be killed. And it's just like, just kill him. Just kill him. If Frodo's learned anything, it should be that some people need to die for the betterment of the world. Like, was that not what this whole quest basically was? I think I'm gonna give this book 3 stars. I definitely didn't like it as much as Two Towers. Two Towers was like by far the most enjoyable book of this series. Like, I really enjoyed Two Towers. It was like almost a 4-star, but it was 3. Fellowship was just so boring. It was 2. This I'm giving 3, but it's very much like on the border of 2 and 3. I did like the ending. I liked seeing how it all wrapped up. I liked getting there, but thank you, Spleen. I don't know. I felt like this series could have easily been so much better than it was, and it just like not my thing. Today is Hobbit Day. My boyfriend and I are watching all 3 of the extended editions of the Hobbit movies. Not the Hobbit movies, the Lord of the Rings movies. I'm not watching the Hobbit movies. I don't care. I will read The Hobbit at some point, not soon. I can't. This burned me out, and I know watching all 3 of the extended editions today will burn me out more, because that is like 13 hours worth of movie, which is a lot. He's out getting donuts right now, so I will probably maybe vlog a little bit during the movies, but I will update my final update after with my thoughts on the movies, because I really do think I will enjoy them a lot more than the books. Because I think a lot of the structural issues I had with the books will be incorporated better in the movie for me. So I finished watching all the movies yesterday. That was an adventure, and I feel utterly exhausted. That wrecked me. They were good. I honestly feel a little disappointed by them. Like, not because they were bad or anything, they just like weren't as good as I was expecting, and I was kind of hoping they'd focus more on other things. Like, they just made some changes that I didn't super love, and they kind of took out some of the things from the books that I really enjoyed, like a lot of Merry and Pippin and their character development, and like in Two Towers and Return of the King. The way Merry gets injured and then like recovers in the hospital, and like, or the healing ward or whatever they called it, I don't remember. And then the way Pippin kind of got his own chance in the battle at the Black Gate, and like there was just a lot more of them and their development in the book, and I felt like the movie kind of took away from their characters. Like, when they got kidnapped by orcs in Two Towers, Pippin did a lot of work to rescue them. Like, Pippin saved them in the books, and then in the movies it was kind of coincidental, you know? Like, in the book he's putting forth all this effort in making active choices and being an active participant in their survival, and in the book it's kind of like a little more coincidental, and they kind of just run away and like be goofy little hobbits, and that disappointed me a lot, because I really liked that in the book. Like, that was kind of my turning point of like being attached to these characters. And I also felt like they took out a lot of Legolas and Gimli. They were funny during the battle scenes, but in the book I felt like their relationship was developed a lot more, and there was just time for that. And I don't know, like, the movies were really good and fun, but I do feel like, and the books were kind of dry and like not my favorite thing, but I do feel like there was more that I specifically liked about the books. Like, the books had more things that I really, really liked, whereas the movies were like a good time, but I didn't really feel as attached to anything in the movies as I was in the books. I don't know. And then that ending, like, Return of the King made a lot of, I mean, there were questionable choices in the adaptation throughout, but like, especially Return of the King, like the whole thing with Saruman, and the scouring of the Shire not being in the movie. Like, the Battle of the Hobbits at the end was like a really big deal. Like, they went back to the Shire and it was like wrecked and they had to like save the Shire after going through all of this. Like, they were just trying to get home, and like that was huge in the book, and completely gone in the movie. And my boyfriend was looking it up while we were watching, and he said Christopher Lee wasn't even credited. Christopher Lee was Saruman. He wasn't even credited in the theatrical release. So, like, did they just cut Saruman out of Return of the King? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, how do you, like, they didn't wrap up his storyline in Two Towers. They were saving it to Return of the King, so I really don't understand how that would work. And, like, I don't know, like, 100% that that's what happened. I'm not gonna look it up. I really don't care. But it's just wild to me if that's true, because that was really important. Like, they killed him in the movie, like, at the beginning of Return of the King, which, like, again, don't love that choice, but I don't know. They were fun movies. Like, I had a good time watching them. Watching them all back to back was like an 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. kind of event, which was a lot. I don't know that I would either reread the books or rewatch any of the movies again. I went through it once. I'm really glad I did it. It was really worthwhile. I didn't love them, but I didn't expect to. And to be honest, I enjoyed a lot of elements a lot more than I expected to. So it was a very positive experience for me. Especially Two Towers. The Two Towers book was really fantastic. And I was so stoked for the movie. And the movie really was just like, it made a lot of questionable choices, I felt like, and kind of cut out a lot of what I really loved about the book. So I don't know. Not my favorite adaptations, I'm going to say, but they were fun. Lots of battle scenes, which I didn't love, but I don't know. What can you do? It was a good time. I'm glad I do it. The only thing I do regret is that I wish I'd read The Hobbit before reading these. I don't think it really mattered, but everyone always says The Hobbit's the best one. Unless you're like a hardcore like Lord of the Rings fan, everyone always says The Hobbit's the best one. And I just didn't read it. So I will eventually, not for this video. I don't have it in me. I'm going to go read some very gritty, very real, realistic fiction and just like pretend that fantasy doesn't exist for a good long minute. But this was fun. Let me know down below your thoughts on anything, everything Lord of the Rings related, because now I will suddenly understand it for the first time. And I'm really happy about that. This was a project, but it was a worthwhile project, and I'm glad that I finally got to them. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.